Hi, boys and girls. Welcome back. I made this video of an ecosystems review because you're going to be filling out a digital learning journal that you'll open through Pages. And then I also wanted to review some of the items that I looked at after you did your Socrative last week before break. So the very first two questions, and I chose these questions when we had a lower percentage of people getting these right. Plants need water, sunlight, and oxygen to create energy during photosynthesis. Many of us said that was true, but it is in fact false. And it's false because of the oxygen. It's a trick question in a lot of ways. So sorry that got so many of you. It's carbon dioxide that plants need, as well as water and sunlight. The next question that had a lower percentage of answers correct is that grasslands have 4 distinct seasons. That also is false. It is the temperate forest. The temperate forest, and that's where we live. We have 4 distinct seasons. Okay. The next two questions, what happens to the energy that an organism consumes or produces? And there are 3 answers here that are correct, and you're going to be filling these 3 things in your digital journal. The 3 things that can happen to energy, think about eating something. When you eat something, you get energy. Well, one thing you could do is you could use it. That's one thing. You could lose it. Just let it go to waste, right? Or you could store it. Those are your 3 things that an organism can do with the energy it consumes. It cannot share its energy, cannot give its energy to something else that needs it, or cannot sell it. It uses it, loses it, or stores it. A group of similar ecosystems make a biome. That's the largest of the tiers of organizations of an ecosystem. I think there's just a couple more. A group of living things, the living parts of an ecosystem, is a community. Remember, populations form communities, and all the living parts are in a community. What factors distinguish one biome from another? There's just a couple answers here, so that's why there's more than one. One is the climate, one is the type of plants, and one is the type of animals. The size doesn't matter, and the amount of sunlight does not make it a distinguishable biome feature. All right, and this one says which organism or organisms are the 3rd level producers. Those are at the top of each of the food chains, and the hawk and the owl. So I think many of us just chose one. The snake is not the 3rd level. I could see why you would say that because it's eating something. 1, 2, 3. And the tertiary, really, those were the only 2. But if you put snake, because you're saying there's 3 things along the way, I understand your point. But typically, because the snake is being consumed also by the hawk, we think of tertiary as end level, and that's why that was probably marked wrong. A biome is all the living and non-living things that interact with each other. That's false. It's the ecosystem. So a lot of these were just a play on vocab words for you. And here are the vocabulary words. Ecosystems. That consists of biotic, which are your living parts, and abiotic, which are your non-living. So you're going to get this digital journal, and I'm going to ask you to find living and non-living parts. Plants and animals would be biotic. Abiotic features of an ecosystem would be that, like sunlight or water, rocks. A population is all of the same members of a species that live in an area. So maybe in our area, we might talk about the deer population. Same species. I wrote special because I'm doing 2 things at once. You know how good I am at that. A community are all the populations that interact together. So the deer with the grass or with other organisms that live in an ecosystem. And here's the key word, interdependent. The whole key here is that these parts, your biotic and abiotic, your populations, communities, are all interdependent on each other. So let me review some things that you're going to find in that digital journal. You can have this video playing, you can split your screen, pause it as you go. Communities have living things, and ecosystems have living and non-living. So an ecosystem is different than a community because it has abiotic things. As I said, non-living things might include the water, the sunlight, the oxygen. A food chain gets its original energy from the sun. Organisms that make their own food are producers. They produce it and make their own food. And organisms that eat other organisms, yep, you got it. They are your consumers. They're eating other things. I want to go back to the producers. This word, photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is that process in which producers make their own food using carbon dioxide and sunlight. Oh, yes, the organisms who break down dead material, they are our decomposers. A decomposer breaks down the dead material from animal waste or things that die, leaves on the ground, and they turn it back into a gas called nitrogen, which fertilizes our soil. Food chain simply starts with the sun, right? Always starts with the sun. Producers make their food, plants, trees. An organism that eats a producer is a primary, first level consumer. Secondary, second level consumers eat primary consumers. And tertiary means third level consumer, and that is what consumes your secondary level consumers. Decomposers play a role with all of them. Any dead material, they turn it back into the soil. That's an individual food chain. Many of those in one area connect and form a food web. Here is an energy pyramid. Where is the most energy available on this energy pyramid? Who has the most energy available? Well, yep, it's your producers, because they are the original source, taking it right from the sun. Through their life processes, through what they use or lose, the energy diminishes every level it goes up. So either, remember, it's going to store, use, or lose the energy. So by the time it goes to the primary consumers, only 10% of that original energy is available. And then by the time those organisms store, use, or lose the energy, only 10% of that, or 1% of the original energy, is available. So the higher an animal's level on the energy pyramid, the more land it's going to cover. This has to cover much more of an area in order to get the food, because as you go up, there's less energy available. So staying in one small area is going to not be very sufficient for that animal to live. It's going to wander more, it's going to eat larger items, and it's going to eat more just to get the same amount of energy. And lastly, the difference between a food chain and a food web. Well, we looked at a food chain. That's just a singular item. A food web is how you would interconnect those, because it's not just a rabbit that might eat the grass. There might be a bird that comes along and eats a worm from the grass. Sorry, but you know what I'm saying, that there's more than one organism that eats an individual. So a food web is a bunch of overlapping food chains. We hit on this in the question of review from Socrative. Factors that determine a biome is the climate and then the plants and animals that live there. There are 6 main land biomes that we studied: the tundra, the taiga, the temperate forest. The temperate forest is the one with 4 distinct seasons. You have grasslands, deserts, and the tropical rainforest were our main ones. But biomes don't only exist on land, they also exist in water. So we have 2 types of water biome main categories: fresh waters. And fresh waters, the 5 areas would be your ponds, your lakes, your streams. Those items are your freshwater biomes. Your marine biomes are your ocean and seas. I don't need you to know them, but we do separate the ocean into 3 zones. What is intertidal goes on land and water. What is near shore right here is your near shore zone. And then your open ocean zone. Just so you're aware that we do separate it. I don't need you to know those. That's really it. I think you should be able to download that journal. It's there for you to be shared. When you press on it, it's going to go in your drive. Then you go in your drive and you click on the top arrow and you're going to open in Pages. And that is how you're going to take your notes. Once you take those notes and you do that, you can go ahead and take the Socrative that's going for a grade. All right, kiddos, I'll see you soon.